these results from the French parliamentary elections are really incredible, because this is exactly what Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn failed to achieve, what they couldn't do. You see here, the first row, this is Emmanuel Macron, his coalition, right? So Macron just won re-election as president. This is not just his party, it's his coalition, and they got 25.8% of the vote. And literally tied with Macron's coalition is NUPES, which is the left coalition. This is the coalition that was created by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who was also a presidential candidate. And he basically, in a matter of weeks, I'm not kidding, he got the socialists, the Greens, the communists, he put everybody together under one program, one banner, one name, and achieved this. This is incredible. Because Bernie Sanders couldn't dream of doing this. Jeremy Corbyn couldn't dream of doing this. The fact that they achieved this, that they are neck and neck with the president's coalition, I've never seen anything like this. And again, this is the first real left coalition that that France has seen in decades. This is very, very, very significant. And it provides a very insightful lesson for the British left and the US left, which we'll explore again in a second. But I just want to break down these results and what they mean, because what Mélenchon's idea was, this is Mélenchon, you can see him on the screen, right? So his idea was that when the first and the second round of the French presidential election are over and Emmanuel Macron is re-elected, it's not over. There's a third round, right? He called this the third round of the presidential election. So he's equating the parliamentary elections in France to the presidential election. As a matter of fact, he's saying it's an extension of it. Because what you've had in France only a few times is a president being elected and then a prime minister being elected who's from a completely different party, completely different wing. And this is actually how it was meant to be. Under the Fifth Republic, well, we're not going to talk about de Gaulle right now, but ideally you want power sharing. You don't want all of the power concentrated in the president's hands, because the Constitution clearly says that it is the prime minister qui conduit, right, who guides the nation's politics, not the president. Okay. And then, of course, we went through all of this. I went through this in a video with you. What powers the French prime minister has. So this is called cohabitation. Cohabitation. And you've only had this a few times. Mélenchon's goal, his goal is to get elected prime minister and make Emmanuel Macron's life hell. And of course, I'm saying that, I'm just being cheeky, because that's not his real goal. His goal is to make people's lives better in France. And he almost got into the final, like the runoff vote against Macron, right? Because just looking back at the first round of the presidential election, you had Marine Le Pen from the far right. She only beat Mélenchon by like 1-2%. And then, of course, the two candidates, the top two candidates, they went on to the second round, right? So she only got into the second round like by really by luck almost. Now, I just want to show you this this article from France 24, and as they break it down, you have 577 seats in the National Assembly that are up for grabs. And down here, they talk about the difference between them, right? So if you go to the website of the Interior Ministry in France, you can see the exact results. The left coalition, they only got 21,000 votes less than Macron's coalition. Can you see that? Over here, the 5 million, and then here. That is so close. Unbelievably close. And going back to the article, they say that Marine Le Pen, well, her coalition did, quite abysmally. She got more than 40% in the final round of the presidential election against Macron, but her coalition didn't do well at all. Now, they're saying that basically, even though the left coalition did so well against Macron, in the runoff vote next week, there's the conventional wisdom, the consensus right now is that Macron's coalition are still going to have more seats than anybody else. Not a complete absolute majority like the last 5 years where he was able to do whatever he wants because he has the presidency, right? And his party and his allies, they have an absolute majority. It's not going to be like that, right? So they say the stakes next Sunday will be high. The two leading coalitions are both touting their chances of winning an absolute majority, meaning 289 of 577 seats. The latest projections, however, suggest that both could well fall short, a highly unusual scenario for the Fifth Republic. So these are just from the latest polls. They say that Macron's coalition could win anywhere from 255 to 295 seats. And the left, so when we say the left, we're talking about NUPES, which is Nouvelle Union Populaire Écologique et Sociale. This is Mélenchon's coalition. They're projected to win 150 to 190 seats. And like I just explained to you, the goal is cohabitation, is to have Mélenchon as the prime minister and Macron as the president. And, Macron not being able to just do whatever he wants. So, Mélenchon said that, quote, the truth is that the president's party is beaten and defeated. And I want to play you a clip from Mélenchon. Let's take a look at what he said.
Je m'adresse à vous avec toute l'émotion que vous pouvez deviner.
I address you with all the emotion that you can imagine. At the end of this first round, the new Popular Union is in the lead.
Populaire arrive en tête.
The NUPES will be present in more than 500 constituencies in the second round.
Circonscription au deuxième tour.
Unprecedented, man. And this is what the left...
Let's take a look now.
This is the problem of the left in the UK and the US. They just don't get it, you know? They don't have that mentality. The French mentality. Because I've always told you guys that the French, they protest, they go on strike, they actually believe and have this integrated into their mindset that you need to do these things. These are hard-fought gains and they have to be protected. And that's just not the case in the US and the UK. It's just not the case. It's not enough to have one guy leading some movement, like Bernie Sanders or Corbyn. And then when the establishment shanked them, everything just falls apart. This is not enough. And in addition to that, you actually have electoral gains. Do you understand? But every single time, it's always supported by direct action. Okay, the protests, the strikes, the general strikes that you had in France in the 20th century that were run mostly by the socialists, right? Those strikes and the general strikes, that is what supported their electoral gains, okay? And so in the US and the UK, you have no direct action and no electoral gains. So, whichever way you look at it, it's screwed. It's screwed. And I want to be very clear on one thing because, in the US, they'll say vote blue no matter who. They'll say, you need to come and join the Democratic Party. You have to vote for the Democratic candidate because if we don't do that, then Donald Trump, the fascist, will win, right? That's their shtick. Now, the thing is, you cannot form a coalition with those people because Democrats are right-wing. Do you notice when I talk about this left coalition in France, it's got communists, it's got socialists, it's got the Greens. It doesn't have neoliberals. As a matter of fact, the whole reason it exists is precisely because of neoliberals, because they're sick of Macron and, of course, Le Pen, who's basically, not too different. Do you understand? So when the left in Europe, a successful left, like you're seeing right now, forms a coalition, it does not include the establishment. Do you understand? It doesn't include liberals. So this idea that, people on the left in the United States have to go and, ally themselves or form some sort of coalition with, Democrats, this is lunacy. Goodbye. What are you talking about? It's not some purity test like, oh, you're not good enough for me. No. Come on, man. This is a basic fact. This is the truth staring you in the face. These policies have nothing to do with each other. Democrats, if the Democratic Party was in France, it is under Macron. But if you just took it and stuck it in Europe, do you know what people would refer, how they would refer to it? As a right-wing party, because it is a right-wing party. Okay? It is a right-wing party. And in the US, you know, you turn on Fox News with this garbage and say, oh, the radical left. Do you know what their definition of radical left is? It just means like a tiny bit to the left of the Republican Party. So basically, still right-wing. But there is no actual left in the American establishment. You definitely got people on the left. You definitely got US citizens and some movements in the US that are actually on the left. For real. And that's not something new, right? I've talked about this at length with you guys so many times. You know, we looked at the left in the United States in the 30s. You know, basically when this was happening at the same time in Europe, they saw what the Russians had done and then tried to mimic that in their own fashion. But there was actually a left back then, right? And of course, FDR co-opted it and so on and so on. I've gone through this with you before, but my point is that left doesn't exist anymore in the US. They destroy it every chance they get. And how do they do that? They co-opt it. That's the whole point. They say, come, join us. We'll give you this. We can work together on this. It's nonsense. It's a trick. It's a trick. You can't win with neoliberals. You can't win with the establishment. They're not your friends. Here is the headline from Reuters. Macron fights to save his parliamentary majority and reform agenda. They say Macron could lose his outright majority in France's parliament and the ability to push through his economic reform agenda with a free hand after a strong showing by a new left-wing alliance in the first round of voting. So as we said, they got very, very, very close. But it is the June 19th second round alone that will determine the division of seats. And the projections are in favor of Macron, but it is not an outright majority, which, you know, of 289, which you need. So even if he got 295, he'd barely be scraping by, right? Barely be scraping by. But this doesn't mean that, oh, you're just supposed to throw your hands up and not vote. Au contraire, j'encourage tous les jeunes, j'encourage tous les Français qui écoutent. Il faut aller voter. C'est surtout important maintenant. Vu que beaucoup de gens sont pas venus. This is a huge problem with voter turnout. You know, not enough people are coming. Let me show you. This is from France 24. They say, key to the second round will be turnout. Sunday's vote saw a new record low for electoral participation, with 59.4% of registered voters staying home. So half the voters stayed home. Left-wing leaders are seeking to rally much greater turnout next week, with the expectation that France's disaffected are more likely to vote for them than for the governing coalition. Well, they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But I want to be clear with you. This left coalition does not come for free. You know, I've seen, because I speak French and I watch the French media. I've seen how they try to shank Mélenchon the same way, the same dirty tricks they've used against Corbyn and, you know, Bernie Sanders. So, you know, with Corbyn said, oh, he's an anti-Semite, blah, blah, blah. You know, they tried to shank him like that. And then with Bernie Sanders, they said, oh, he's too radical. Oh, he's too socialist. He's an unwinnable, you know, if you put him on a ticket, it's just not going to work or appeal to voters. And of course, all the other things. Oh, you remember with Elizabeth Warren? Oh, you're a misogynist, etc. The Bernie bro voters are misogynists. And then with Mélenchon, they tried doing the same thing, man. You know, this is unbelievable that he's literally, in the same instance, criticizing the Russian war in Ukraine. And then 2 moments later, they're like, but didn't you say this in 2014 about Crimea? And he's like, no, you either don't listen or you know, you don't know what you're talking about, because I criticized that in 2014 as well. So, you know, it's so funny watching him. It's like swat them like flies, no matter which way they come to. So even right now, right, they try to get at him like, yeah, but aren't you maybe a Putin puppet? Not as extreme as they do with other people, but they've tried a lot of things, certainly a lot of things that are, you know, really dirty tactics that I've picked up on and I noticed. And I talked about them with you in the other video, but you know, I think this is a lesson. This should serve as a lesson for the British left and the American left, that you have to make a coalition, but not with people that are liberals. You can't do that with people from the establishment. You have to agree on one program and you have to stick with it, right? Mélenchon's program, I went through that as well. I told you everything that they've laid out. That he laid out during his candidacy in the presidential election. And then, of course, the program of this coalition in particular. Do you know how incredible that is to get so many people together in such a short period of time and actually agree on something, right? Because they had to make compromises, each one among them, to find a common ground. And that is really something, incredible. I'm not sure what website this is. I was trying to just Google something quickly, but this is correct. They want to have the retirement at 60. This is very important, and they want, of course, to make sure that you have a sort of a. Well, this was originally Mélenchon's idea of having a sixth republic, and that might sound weird to Americans. Or those who don't know French history, or don't understand the system, because, you know, France has had multiple republics, if that makes sense. Every time they draft a new constitution, they call it a republic. So right now, France has been since 1958, I believe, dans la 5e République, Charles de Gaulle, you know, at the helm. So, you know, it's gone through several transformations, and their idea was to basically have a sixth republic, to lower retirement to 60. Macron wants to raise it. Unbelievable, you know. It's like, get back to work, whipping people, and you know, le SMIC, so the minimum wage would be raised to 1,500, and they would have a price freeze on basic goods. So these are things that benefit everybody. They are gains or similar to gains that the socialists in France fought for before. And Macron doesn't give, you know, Macron's program has none of that, neither does Le Pen. So again, it's incredible that they actually agreed on something so quickly. I think that is very important. You can actually see it in the frame right here, what I was getting at. Just one moment. There you go. Right? TVA, so the last line, baisse de la TVA, is VAT, right? So this is sur les produits de première nécessité. This is on basic goods, right? So lowering the tax rate, or rather the VAT rate on basic goods. They would nationalize all of the major infrastructure, autoroutes, so highways. SMIC, as I mentioned, the minimum wage, they'd raise that to 1,500 net. And then retraite is retirement at 60 avec 40 annuités. So really things that are very basic. It doesn't go necessarily as far as what Mélenchon's program was proposing, but, you know, you can't just there's no comparison, was what I'm trying to say, between NUPES, between this left coalition, and what the others are offering. So we'll see what happens, man. I think even if the coalition doesn't win too many seats next Sunday, the fact that this coalition does exist now, and you know, that the French left has been revived and reignited and reinvigorated and mobilized and assembled, and that Mélenchon was able to do what Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn could not do This is huge, man. Really, this is huge. Because you've seen this experiment being tried in multiple countries at the same time, right? And if you would have asked me, I would have hedged my bets that it would have been in France. If you ask me which country do you think could succeed with this sort of coalition, definitely the French, because I know the French mentality. You know, I can't count the number of times my teachers were on strike. So I get it. I understand them. I know how they think. And it's just a fact that the French have always had a stronger left than in the UK and the US. But it doesn't mean that it's, you know, that these are not hard fought gains and that they don't have a tough road ahead. So we'll see what happens next week in the runoff vote. But either way, it's a win-win. Either way, it's a win-win. They've sent a huge message, right? A resonating, resounding message to the establishment. And I hope it serves as a lesson for the UK and the US.